Then on this list, you have Street Fighter, Tekken 7, and all the other games. It shows you the length of support. But so it raises the question, like, how long do you feel like support for fighting games should carry on? How long should developers keep supporting it after release so people can be satisfied with, like, okay, it was a nice run, we enjoyed the game, time for the next one. So starting with you, Mr. Gaming Lift.
Um, I want to say my answer. I want to say maybe like 3 to 5 years, give or take, maybe.
Mm,
But this also depends on like the factors of like how popular the game is, and I'm pretty sure that the developers are probably looking at, well, we're gonna see like, are people playing our game still? Is there a demand for the game still? How are the sales still going? So that's what I would maybe assume that they would go off of. I felt like MK11 did pretty well, especially when upon release. Like I think it did extremely well. Um, and it's warranted that it was like the longest supported out of those NRS games on the list. And then you drop down to the bottom and you look at stuff like Tekken 7 and Brawlhalla, and I didn't even realize Brawlhalla had been out that long and they've been supporting it for so long. But I kind of want to put Brawlhalla in like a special spot because it's a free to play game, so it's a different structure with those types of games. Like, and I don't even know if they just thought that game was gonna be as big as it has become. Like they're doing like crossovers and stuff now. Like, so I feel like Brawlhalla is now becoming like a free to play Fortnite esque fighting game, and it's also like kind of rooted in Smash Brothers. So a lot of people like that type of gameplay. And they putting all kind of guest characters in it now. So I feel like Brawlhalla is just in a different league because it's one of those games where like it's free to play, so it's easy for people to get into. Is they can literally just download it for free and play it. They really like it. They get into it. Now they putting money into it with skins and stuff. So people are like, oh well, this is more money. We got to support the game. Let's put these guest characters in. And oh, they got the Ninja Turtles. Oh, definitely got to play Leonardo and Raphael. So people gonna want to buy those skins, put more money into their pocket. So they gonna keep supporting it. Um, I think that was the only free to play game that's on that list. I think Tekken 7 has just been going super strong. So I guess just the game is. I think like I don't think any Tekken recently, like of the past few years, has been doing what Tekken 7 has. It's just like the feel of the game, how was the presentation, everything. Like the competitive scene has been super strong. So I guess that they just say, hey, the people love the game, the community is still strong for it. The scene is really strong. People like the game, so we're just gonna keep supporting it. And you do go back to NRS, and it's like, man, NRS is like really on the short end of the spectrum. Um, but also you got to look at, it seems that when NRS games come out, it seems like people really complain a whole lot. So maybe the developers are like, look, we make these games, and then when they come out, y'all just like this wrong, that wrong. Why this, do that, and then like, all right, we're gonna go on to the next thing. It's like, is it really any effort, like point for us to put effort into supporting this long if y'all just gonna be complaining? And I mean, there's complaining in every game, but I think there's definitely like you see like more so with the NRS community. It's like there's always a lot of divisiveness and polarizing thoughts about the game. So I don't know. I think I said this in the last episode of Input Output that maybe they just like, hey, this we're just gonna move on to the next thing. And whether that's Injustice 3 or this new Marvel game or whatever it could be, Marvel versus DC, I don't know. Maybe it's just like, well, we see people not really pleased with the game no matter what we do, so we're just gonna go on to the next thing. Um, yeah, I think that's probably the reason why NRS on that list is shorter than any other game. Um, yeah, like Capcom, they support stuff for forever. They every Street Fighter has like 20 versions. Super Street Fighter, Ultra Street Fighter, Omega Street Fighter, Alpha Omega Edition, Street Fighter 5 Family Edition. Like, so they gonna run the game till the wheels fall off. I'm at the point now. I'm tired of Street Fighter 5. 6, please come out. That's so that you could so they run their games into the ground. That's just been their legacy. So yeah, I think that's my take on it. I just feel like that part of it is just a amalgam, a combination of different factors as a reason why they may not support their games as long as everybody else does.
Yeah, I would say my take on it is the short answer is for in terms of development is obviously, as long as people want it, as long as people are supporting the game, then the companies are going to continue to support it. But the longer answer is it depends. And one thing that depends on that I think a lot of people aren't thinking about is the output of the developer. A developer like NRS, they're known for like this 2 year cycle with their games. In fact, like MK11, I think is the longest that they've gone without a new game for pretty much since Injustice. Like Injustice, what they have like MK9, then Injustice, then MKX, and then yeah, everything after that. And so they're known for having this output where they put out a game, it stays hot for 2 years, and it's like, okay, on to the next one. So it's not that big of a surprise that MK11, I guess, isn't getting additional support, but at the same time, it seemed like MK11 was still hot, so why not continue to add more to it? And another thing that goes along with the it depends answer is I think we've gotten to the point now with this console generation that it's hard to come out with multiple iterations of a series in the same generation. Like last gen, last gen, I can't even say that anymore because that was a PS4 gen technically. With the PS3 generation, 360 generation, you had Street Fighter 4, then you had Street Fighter Cross Tekken, you had Marvel 3, then Ultimate, you had um there's other games that I'm trying to think of, but I can't think of. But you get the idea. Is that back then you had, oh yeah, you had Tekken 6, then you had Tekken Tag 2. You could have multiple iterations in a series within the same generation. And now games just cost too much to make. It just is what it is. You can't create a game and then 2-3 years later just come out with just another game. NRS can do that just because that's their output, and let's be honest, they have the money to do so. Capcom and a lot of these other developers, they're not quite at that level where they're pouring that much money into their games like that. And so as a result, I think things are starting to hit that League of Legends approach where you have just this base game that stays pretty much this way that it, like League has stayed the same way since its inception, since like 2010 or whenever League came out, and they've continued to update it over time. You haven't got a new game, you just get updates to the same game. I think that's the route that fighting games are honestly going to go, is that when we do get Street Fighter 6, that's going to be the Street Fighter game for this generation. You're not going to get a Street Fighter 7 in the same generation. When you get a Tekken 8 or whatever they decide the next Tekken is going to be, that's going to be the only Tekken for this generation. It's just too expensive to make more games in the same generation, so it just makes more sense to take that game and just continue to update it. I feel like Guilty Gear Strive, that's going to be the only Guilty Gear for this generation. I highly doubt that we get another Guilty Gear. They'll just continue to add content to it, make balance changes, season passes, etc. So NRS, I feel like, is really the outlier in this situation. They're the only ones who have the ability to make multiple games in a generation. If they make another MK, and then if they make Injustice 3 and then make another MK this generation, it wouldn't surprise me just because they have the ability to do that and the others don't. So I do think that it just depends on how long people want to support the game. Because look at Marvel Infinite, that game came and went just because people weren't having it. So obviously, if your game doesn't do well, it's not going to get support. But if a game is successful, I think from here on out, we're just going to see them just continue to add content to a game instead of just making another one just because it's too much to do. But NRS is in a league of their own. Every game they put out sells like hotcakes, so they can afford to make multiple games throughout a generation. So yeah, that's my take on it.